The way they did the building destruction, I mean, it can be a few rounds, it can be a lot. Most of the time you will find that if you put a good burst onto a building, you'll fuck it up.
Is there like a upper limit where if you spent this many rounds, you might as well quit, it's not going to go down?
You know, use your judgment based on the situation. If you're in a situation where you're not expecting a lot of contact, and it's probably going to be sitting there using all of your ammo, you can probably be a little bit more spendy with it. But if you're in a situation where you're going to have just contacts until you get shot down, you probably don't want to spend more than, say, 50, 60, 70 rounds. Yeah, like Kilroy notes, some of these buildings, you can like sneeze on them and a gigantic hole will be blown in it. But there's no pattern I've noticed, so don't worry too much about it. Do you have any final questions before we move on to the tow missile usage? Okay, tow missiles. These are used against armor. They're an anti-tank guided missile. The tow is a tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided missile. Wire-guided means fucking nothing in ARMA. Optically tracked means you put the cursor on what you want to die, and the missile will follow towards it. Tube-launched is kind of obvious. The range of these in reality is about 4 kilometers. Because of the way that ARMA 2 and Arrowhead render vehicles, you won't see any vehicles further than 3 kilometers, so that's our max range. Take on helicopters changes how that works. I would expect ARMA 3 to change that as well. These missiles are relatively slow. If you're firing out to your full range, it's going to take some time for them to get there. They have a narrow launch window. It's aligned with the helicopter's nose. I don't know the exact dimensions of it, but it's pretty small. So all gunners, line up on your pilot's nose right now. Switch to tow missiles. You'll note on the left side of the crosshair, it will say ATTK vertically. Does everyone see that?
Yes.
That indicator tells you that you're within constraints. If you fire a missile while you're in constraints, everything's cool. It'll track, you'll be able to guide and everything. If that doesn't show up and you fire a missile, it's just gonna go flying off from nowhere. You cannot recover it. Thus, you must be very careful. The pilot has to be careful about how he moves, how he's flying. The gunner has to be careful about when he's launching to make sure the missiles are all good. Now go ahead and pan left until you see the attack disappear, then pan back right until you see it reappear and disappear again. That's your launch cone. Okay, if you're familiar with how tows work in reality, they actually, tow 2B will fly over and fire a penetrator down. That's not how this works. These are like the original tows. You steer them right into the vehicle, or target, or whatever you're shooting at. The tows can be fired while in motion. This is not like original WGL where you had to slow down to shoot them. There's a period of time when they launch where the missile is trying to find its way into the seeker window, or the crosshair window basically. That coincides to about 200 meters. You don't want to fire anything closer than that. And if you fire at around 200 meters, it's kind of tricky as to whether the missile will get there fast enough. Like it'll center up fast enough to hit. Since it's going to be fired while moving, it's usually beneficial to do so, even if the movement's very small, because when you fire it, there's going to be smoke in front of your gun sight. The closer target is, the more likely it is that smoke's going to obscure your vision long enough to miss. So if you're sitting there making a stationary shot, it behooves you to make a little bit of lateral motion so the smoke will clear out of the gun sight's angle quicker. You can fire these against moving or stationary targets at whatever ranges. Keep in mind that right now in ARMA at further ranges, vehicles will warp back and forth at like every 5 seconds or so. That should be cleared up in version 1.60, which will be out shortly. But for now, just keep it in mind, the further away something is, the less likely you'll be able to effectively engage it if it's moving. If you're tracking a moving target, track it towards the front edge. I don't have much reason for this, aside from saying that in practicing it, I found it easier to track to the front edge. If it slowed down, it was easier to adjust for. Let's go ahead and set up. You saw those 272s from earlier? Gunners, go ahead and sight back in on those. We do a very quick stationary shot against those T-72s, so you're all familiar with it, and then we'll practice on some moving targets. 3. Good hit. 3. 4.
4-5. Missile away.
Good hits.
I saw the effect of my hit, but I didn't see the effects of friendly hits. I did see one missile go, but not the other ones. Is that typical? Same here.
That's pretty typical. That's just how Arma handles this kind of stuff. Fortunately, most of the time we will not be using 4 Cobras, so it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, what we're going to do now is you're going to continue staying in that position. We're going to do the same sequence. It'll be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. I'm going to have individual vehicles come out from those T-72s down that road to the left. They'll appear there, and they'll drive down the road. 1 will engage the first one, 2 will engage the second, and so on. Before we do this, do we have any questions about how the tows work?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Do we ever want to use that laser designator for tows?
No, the tow missile has no awareness of lasers. Hellfires do, tows don't. Tows are completely optically guided.
Got it.
The only in a tow Cobra, the only weapon system that uses that laser is the cannon.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You were mentioning about the attack angle at which you could launch at. After that's the missile's been fired, can you exceed those limits by guiding it?
Yes. After the missile's been fired, once it's gotten at least 200 meters out, once you've seen it center up in your crosshairs, at that point, yes, you can kind of move it around. But keep in mind, if you do that and you slew really far to the right, it's going to have trouble compensating for that. You don't want to fire a missile forward and then try and hit someone that's to your right. It's not going to happen.
2 copy.
Question.
Go ahead.
Regarding pilot duty on keeping the tow centered, how much vertical consideration do I have to have? Like,
I think it's reasonably forgiving on that. I don't think the vertical element's going to be too much of a problem.
alright.
I haven't had a good way to test that, so try it amongst yourselves at some point and see. Yeah, but I've never had an issue with it. 2, call it when you see it.
2 Taliana.
2, engageable.
2 engaging.
Two, good kill. 3, ready?
3 ready.
Three, call it when you see it.
3 spotted.
3, engaged after he has passed the prior burned out vehicles.
Alright.
3, you're clear fire.
Well, I got the turret at least.
Three, re-engage. Good kill. As you saw there, the first round hit the turret, knocked that out. It's possible that it killed the crew. You don't know for sure, so if you need to, hit it again. Now it's very clearly destroyed. Okay, that concludes the gunner equipment. We'll now move on to the pilot. The first piece of gear that the pilot has that the gunner does not are the flares. If you press your R key, you'll dispense flares. Try that now. 1 set. Now press Control.